I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers stay as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Welcome to our exploration of A Course in Miracles in Practice.
Today, we are really digging into Lesson 358. It's quite late in the workbook, and it gets right to the heart of what prayer and guidance can look like.
It challenges, I think, some of our most basic ideas about how help shows up in our lives.
The lesson makes this incredibly powerful claim right at the start, that no call to God, no real request for help is ever unheard.
Or left unanswered. And this is the part that I think is so important, that the answer we get is the one we really want.
Right, which sounds wonderful. But in practice, a lot of us notice this gap, a space between what we think we're asking for and what our mind is actually willing to receive.
That gap is exactly what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, that's our mission here, to explore what that gap means.
Yeah.
What does it mean to say you want an answer, but you're still trying to tell it what to look like?
And what kind of willingness does it take to just let the content, the real answer, come through in whatever way it's recognized in the mind? This is where it all gets very practical.
It does. And to make this really grounded, we have this amazing story from our producer, Allison, that we'll share a bit later.
It's a really striking example of how this inner correction can show up using a very external, very personal symbol. It's a perfect illustration.
It really is. And for you listening, if you're working with the Course, we would love to hear about your own experiences with this, with that gap. You can email us at acim@theworldharmonyproject.org.
Okay, so let's get into the lesson itself. We'll read it now, slowly, just to let the words sink in. They really set the stage for everything we're going to explore.
Lesson 358. No call to God can be unheard nor left unanswered. And of this I can be sure. His answer is the one I really want.
You who remember what I really am alone, remember what I really want. You speak for God, and so you speak for me. And what you give me comes from God himself. Your voice, my Father, then is mine as well, and all I want is what you offer me in just the form you choose that it be mine.
Let me remember all I do not know, and let my voice be still remembering. But let me not forget your love and care, keeping your promise to your Son in my awareness always. Let me not forget myself is nothing, but myself is all.
That opening line is just, it's so strong. No call to God can be unheard nor left unanswered.
The answer is already there. It already exists.
The answer is what we actually want, which can be hard to believe when we're in the middle of a problem and we think we want something very different. Most of us were taught to think about prayer, this transactional external thing. You send out a request, and then you look around for a sign that it was received.
And this lesson just completely turns that picture on its head.
It does, with that one line. You speak for God, and so you speak for me.
That's the foundation of it all. The shared mind. It places the answering voice right inside the same mind that asks the question.
The voice for God is just the part of our own mind that hasn't forgotten the truth.
And if that's true, then the call and the answer aren't separated by anything. Not time, not space. The second the call is made, which is really just the willingness to see things differently, the answer is already there.
Because the answer is always just remembrance.
Exactly, remembrance. So if the movement isn't external, if nothing has to travel from here to there, then the answer has to show up as a change inside the mind.
A change in perception, or as the lesson calls it, remembrance.
Right. We stop depending on the world to rearrange itself as our proof. We're looking for the veil of forgetfulness to lift inside our own minds.
Which is where the mistake was made in the first place. The belief in separation, the pain, it's all an internal experience.
And that's the core shift. If the problem is a misperception, this belief that I'm alone and vulnerable and separate, then the answer can't be just a rearrangement of my circumstances. The circumstances are just symbols.
The answer has to be the correction of the interpretation, the restoration of the awareness that the separation was the illusion all along.
So when we ask for help with, say, a money problem, The answer isn't necessarily a check in the mail.
Right. The answer is the correction of the perception that makes us afraid of not having money in the first place.
It's a change in what we value internally. We asked for relief from fear, and the answer is the recognition of our safety, no matter what the bank account looks like.
And that's why the lesson can say it's the answer we really want, even if what we thought we wanted was the check.
Precisely. The asking itself, the real call underneath the specifics, is always, I need peace, or this feeling of separation is painful.
And the answer to separation is always unity. So that answer is just always available right there in the shared mind.
It's delivered by the voice that speaks for that truth, which connects directly to that next part of the prayer.
Let me remember all I do not know, and let my voice be still, remembering.
Yeah. If the answer is already there inside our shared mind, then our only job is to stop arguing with it.
Our own analysis and judgment and, our instructions for how the answer is supposed to look.
That ego commentary is so persistent, isn't it? It's not just random thoughts, it's a whole narrative.
It's dedicated to directing the form. It says, okay, I want peace, but peace can only look like this. He has to call me back, or this deal has to go through.
And when we're doing that, when we're filling the space with that commentary, we're basically just arguing that the problem is real and that the solution has to come from the outside world.
Which is the very belief that's causing the pain.
Right. And what's so beautiful here is that the lesson presents the quieting of that voice as a choice.
To just pause that constant stream of argument. And that pause is the opening.
That's the space where the other voice, the shared voice, can be heard. The one that already knows the truth of what we are. It's deciding to step back from being the author of your own rescue mission.
And that is such an act of humility, isn't it?
It's the ultimate act. It's the mind finally saying, you know what? My way isn't working.
So I'm willing to consider that the solution has to come from somewhere beyond my personal limited view.
That's the whole practice of remembering what we do not know. We don't know the way out of the illusion because our vision is limited by the illusion itself.
That seems incredibly hard to do in practice, though, to really let go and say, I don't know, especially when the stakes feel high, your health, your family, your safety.
It is hard. And that difficulty is what leads us right into this idea of the gap, because that's where the ego puts up its biggest fight.
Okay, so let's go back to that line. His answer is the one I really want.
When you really sit with that, you start to see that it doesn't mean the answer will feel comfortable or even familiar.
Not to the part of you that asked the question, anyway.
In fact, to that part of the mind, it can feel alien or even threatening at first.
And there's the gap. That's it right there. The ego, that personal story we tell ourselves, it operates purely on fear and separation.
It wants relief, but it wants relief without any real change in identity.
Right. If I feel lonely, the ego's solution is for a specific person to come back into my life. It wants the symptom fixed.
But it absolutely does not want to let go of the identity of being the person who was wronged or the person who is lonely and needs someone else to be okay.
The ego wants the pain to be relieved, but the answer the Course describes removes the cause of the pain altogether.
But the answer corrects the mind's whole idea of what safety is. It shows you that you're perfectly safe with or without the money.
And that is completely unacceptable to the ego.
Of course, because its whole world is built on fear and vulnerability. That has to be why so many of us, when we first start to receive these inner corrections, we initially push them away.
Yeah, we're waiting for some kind of divine validation of our personal story. We want God to agree with us. Yes, you were right to be angry. Yes, you deserve that because you suffered so much.
But the answer doesn't do that. It just quietly dissolves the self that was suffering. It doesn't attack it. It just shows an alternative where the struggle isn't necessary.
And the recognition that, oh, this is what I really wanted, that doesn't usually happen in the moment.
No, it often comes much later, after the mind stops arguing for its original fear-based request.
And that process, that surrender, is all wrapped up in that choice to remember what I do not know.
So giving up that role of being the manager of your own salvation, that is the real work. That's the surrender this lesson is talking about. We accept the limits of our own little mind.
And we acknowledge that the solution to a problem that's rooted in a belief in separation can't possibly come from that same separated mind.
The answer has to come from a different level of awareness.
That takes us to the next big point, which is this really stubborn pull we all have toward focusing on a specific form.
Yes, even when you've been practicing for a long time, that pull is still there.
Oh, it's so strong. Intellectually, you can get it. You can understand that the answer is content, it's peace, it's forgiveness.
But then a threat shows up, and the first reflex is to demand an external fix.
Relief just feels like it should look like money in the bank, or a good report from the doctor, or a specific event happening out in the world. We learned that these external forms are what guarantee our survival, our identity. So when we lose them, the separate self feels like it's being destroyed.
We want the world to rearrange itself to make us feel comfortable or safe. Which brings us to the line that is the actual remedy for this.
And all I want is what you offer me, in just the form. You choose that it be mine.
That's a statement of surrender. But the lesson isn't asking you to pretend you no longer care about your body or your life circumstances.
It's about shifting who's in charge. The mind is just acknowledging that, okay, I'm still going to experience form, but the purpose of that form is now being decided by a wiser part of my mind.
The form is no longer being used to try and provide a security that it can never give. Only our real self can do that. And this is where a lot of people get caught up. They ask, well, if the answer is always content, if it's always an inner correction, why does form get involved at all? Why use symbols?
Because that's the language we speak. As learners in this world, we operate in a world of symbols. The mind needs a bridge.
Right. The Holy Spirit works with what you already believe in. Words, images, relationships, things you notice in your daily life. The symbols become the delivery system for the content.
So when the lesson says whatever form he chooses, it's not talking about what the correction is. The correction is always release from guilt. It's talking about how that release gets to our mind. It's like the course itself. Helen Schucman's mind was very academic, structured, logical. She worked with words.
Exactly. So the answer, the content of forgiveness, arrived in a form she could accept. Dictation. Words. Sentences. A structured curriculum.
The gift was the correction that came through the words, but the words themselves were the necessary form for her mind. This is a perfect bridge to the story from Allison. It's such a clear, grounded example of this whole process. It shows exactly how a very personal, external form can be used to deliver an inner shift.
Yes, it's a story she shared with us from when she was a teenager. And it's just a powerful illustration of the answer showing up in a form you never would have asked for, but that the mind accepts instantly.
The situation was very intense. Her grandmother was dying in a nursing home.
And Allison was a teenager, just completely overwhelmed by the gravity of it all. So while her family went inside, she stayed in the car. She was just struggling with the whole thing.
And she found out later that she had missed the moment of her grandmother's death.
And immediately, this intense guilt just flooded in. Her mind got stuck in this loop, just asking over and over, did I fail her? Did I abandon my family?
In that mental loop, that was her call for help. That was her request for an answer, even though it was phrased as fear and self-punishment.
So on the drive home, her mind is just spinning, replaying the whole thing, caught in self-judgment. And at some point, a car passes her on the road.
And she just happens to glance at the license plate. And it reads, DTH-309.
And she said she understood it instantly.
Right.
There was no thought process. Her mind just saw it as death at 3.09.
A sudden, very specific, concrete symbol delivered right into her personal field of awareness.
And then came the verification, which is what really solidified the form for her. Later on, they saw the death certificate, and the time of death was listed as 3:09 p.m. For years, Allison told that story as a message from her grandmother. A beautiful, comforting story of personal communication.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
But when we look at it through the lens of the Course, the focus shifts entirely, doesn't it?
It shifts away from who sent the message and focuses only on the result. The only important question is, what changed in her thinking?
And the answer is, it released her from guilt.
The license plate served the content, and the content was forgiveness. Her mind was desperate for relief from self-blame, and this symbol arrived in a way that allowed her to accept that relief.
The Course talks about the guiding principle using symbols the mind already responds to. And Allison mentioned she had always been someone who noticed license plates.
Right, so the form was perfect for her. It was tangible, it was sudden, and it seemed verifiable, which gave her conscious mind something to hold on to.
And that allowed the real content, the spiritual message, to just rush in underneath.
We don't need to understand how that specific car with that license plate showed up right then. Here, form is about how the mind receives the correction, not about God engineering specific events in the world. All that matters is what happened in her mind.
The gift was the release from guilt. The license plate was just the vehicle that her mind used to accept it.
It allowed her to let go of her argument for why she should feel guilty. It bypassed all the egos back and forth about whether she was a good person or not.
And just delivered this immediate knowing of peace, of innocence. It's such a vivid illustration of all I want is what you offer me in just the form you choose. The form looked unusual, yes, but the content, that release from guilt, was exactly what her heart was asking for.
It's also a great example of letting her voice be still. That frantic commentary was just stopped in its tracks. Her personal voice just went quiet. And in that quiet, the answer was received.
When we look at the lesson this way, something else starts to stand out. The answers are always received in a relationship.
Yes. The correction almost always shows up as a change in how we hold someone in our mind.
Including ourselves.
Yes, including ourselves. We often think we're praying for a private answer, just for us. But the answers the Course describes are always about extending forgiveness.
Because the original mistake was the belief in separation, so the answer has to be the correction of that belief.
Which means a change in how you see others, which automatically changes how you see yourself.
The world stays the classroom. The forms, the people, the situations, they're still there.
Exactly. What changes is the interpretation we put on them. The classroom is the same, but the curriculum changes from fear to love.
The people in your life who used to be triggers for pain now become opportunities for correction.
When you see Lesson 358 that way, the promise it makes feels so much more grounded. It's not a promise that the world will magically change to suit you.
It's a guaranteed promise that your mind will be corrected as soon as you ask, because it's a shared mind.
The lesson is just this deep invitation to be willing, to stop directing the form of the answer and just receive the content that reminds you of who you really are.
And that willingness is an active choice. It means giving up the ego's timetable and its list of demands for what a rescue has to look like.
And that brings us to the final part of the prayer, which is the ultimate shift in perspective.
Let me not forget myself is nothing, but myself is all.
That puts everything in its proper place. The identity we built in this world, that personal self that gets so caught up in form, that's the nothing.
Not in a bad way, not as a condemnation.
No, not at all. Just as an observation of its function. It's the temporary collection of ideas and forms. The real answer belongs to the true self, which is our shared, unified reality.
So the self that's frantically asking for a specific outcome is the very self that needs to get quiet so the real answer can be heard?
It's just a quiet, honest practice. You notice what the personal self wants, the specific fix, and you gently allow the answer that dissolves the need for a fix to be received instead.
It's a move from demanding to accepting.
So as we've explored this lesson, it's really become clear that prayer, in this context, is all about internal teaching.
Yeah, it's not sending a message out and hoping for a reply. It's about accessing the wisdom that's already part of our shared mind.
We saw that the answer is already here. And receiving it just means letting go of our own fear-based ideas about what help should look like. And we saw, through Allison's story, how form plays its part.
The form is just the temporary vehicle.
The content is the permanent forgiveness. The quiet certainty in this lesson is what really stays with me. It just assures us that we've already asked for the only thing that matters.
And the answer has already been given.
Our only job now is to be willing to stop directing the show, to just allow the answer to be received, and to trust that the correction is already happening.
So, as we close, here is a thought for you to explore over the next few days. If the answer you really want is always a correction of perception, what happens when your circumstances still look exactly like the problem you wanted solved?
That is the practice. That's the deep, ongoing practice this lesson is inviting us into.
Thank you for joining us for this exploration of A Course in Miracles.
I